The Sugar Bowl. Notre Dame wins 23-10 over Georgia. I was not shocked because I expected Notre Dame to win, but I thought that this thing was going to be really close. And there were points where it could have been close. Georgia got into the red zone twice, came away with no points. That certainly would kill you. And then you give up a kick return touchdown, and that'll kill you. And you give up a fumble, a strip sack inside of your own 15-yard line, and yeah, that's going to get you too. So, yes, the game probably should have been a little bit closer, but Notre Dame made the big plays, and Georgia did not. There was no edge setter for Georgia. Notre Dame was able to live on the outside. I found that wildly interesting. Jeremiah Love was hurt relatively early in this game, but Riley Leonard could get to the edge whenever he wanted to. They were able to cut it upfield multiple times, and it's exactly what we talked about on the BetUS show when I brought up, Riley Leonard is he is the prototypical mobile quarterback. Georgia can't defend a mobile quarterback. They haven't been able to in a long, long time. Now, it's not like he's some jitterbug back there, but when they have a designed run for their quarterback, and he's really good at making people miss. So Riley Leonard ends up with, 80 yards rushing, I believe, on the night, on 14 carries? Yeah, he was their leading rusher. I mean, that's pretty wild to me. Georgia could not run the ball. 2.14 yards per carry. You combine that with 2 turnovers in the game, and it's just a recipe for disaster. This is the Georgia team that we have seen all year, and they showed us who they were multiple times. They were also good enough to get big wins as well. They beat Tennessee. They beat Texas. Now, how good those wins are, who knows? But that's kind of the deal, right? The SEC is littered with NFL players. But I do wonder, in college basketball, we talk about the Big Ten, right? The Big Ten hasn't won a national championship since 2000. There are so many good players on the other teams in the SEC, you got to wonder how much they beat each other up, right? And it's not an excuse. It's just the teams that are left in the field right now are Ohio State, who is finally clicking, Texas, who didn't have to play much of a schedule. They lost to Georgia twice. Aside from that, their best wins are a win over Clemson, I guess a win at Texas A&M, who was without their leading rusher and was starting their backup quarterback and all kind of different things, right? So you got those, and then you got Penn State, who could not beat Ohio State, but that was it, really. And then Notre Dame, who didn't really have to play. They'll tell you that they beat 6 ranked teams this year at the time of the game, but when you go back and look, it's okay. A&M, yes, Louisville, the 2 service academies, Indiana, and now Georgia, who had their backup quarterback. Indiana, by the way, turns out Curtis Rourke played with a torn MCL for the whole season. Tom Pelissett reported that today. Anyway, so back to Notre Dame and Georgia. This game was won in about 40 seconds of game time. That's really what won this game for Notre Dame. They kicked a field goal, and I think it was 39 seconds left in the first half. So it might have been 34 seconds left on the clock by the time it got done. But they kicked a field goal. They come out in Georgia, rather than run the ball and just go into the half down 6-3, they let Gunnar Stockton wind up. And boy, does he have a long wind up. It reminds me of Tim Tebow. It just takes forever for him to get, to the release point. They come out, and Gunnar Stockton tries to throw, strip sack in the pocket. And immediately, Riley Leonard throws a touchdown pass. You come out in the second half, Notre Dame gets the ball back, and they return the kickoff. And at that point, it's 20-3, and there's basically no chance of Georgia being able to come back in this game because their offense cannot move the football. Not consistently, anyway. So if you can't move the football like that, and not only that, the defense could not stop Notre Dame from running. So if you can't do that, there was no prayer. So this game was effectively over with the opening kickoff of the third quarter. Because once you go up by 3 scores on this Georgia team, that's it. It's done. So, Kirby was trying to be aggressive there with only 30-something seconds left, but turning the ball over right there was an absolute disaster. So, do I understand what he was trying to do? Yes. I get it. You feel like your quarterback, you're trying to show some confidence in him. You're going to let him fling one. And to be fair, he was pretty accurate on the day. It's not like Gunnar Stockton played poorly. Notre Dame just happened to have the advantage at the line of scrimmage. That was not something that I think that Georgia expected. Georgia outgained Notre Dame 296-244 on the day. So it was really those 30-some-odd seconds of game time that completely altered the entire game and won the game for Notre Dame. The special teams was awesome. The trading 11 in and 11 out, that was a big, big thing. The all-11 punt switch. Kirby talked about how refs had told him in the past that you can't sub 11. But the fact of the matter is this. The center never touched the ball, so it was never a live ball. So there was nothing illegal about the play. And I don't know what he's talking about how SEC officiating has told him that, because if you go back and look, like, you look at the rule book, the center has to touch the ball for it to be a live ball. He never touched it. Like, they lined up, then they swapped out. They knew that Georgia had to have time to sub. You got to have 10 seconds. Well, they got everybody back out there with 16 seconds left. So they had 6 seconds to be able to try and draw Georgia offsides, and they successfully did it. Now, I will tell you that it looked a whole lot to me like the wide receiver for Notre Dame moved first, so I thought it was a false start. And if you go back and look, I mean, it was pretty obvious. Like, I think he moved first, but it is what it is. You have to be more disciplined than that if you are Georgia. You cannot give up that first down there. And that allowed Notre Dame to run off 4 more minutes of clock. I mean, just a disaster. This is the first New Year's Six bowl win for Notre Dame in 31 years. How awesome is that? This is a big deal. It's a big deal for Notre Dame fans. That program that was kind of left for dead, Brian Kelly leaving for the SEC because, down there they've got all the resources to be able to win a national title. But the game has changed since Brian Kelly left. And who would have ever thought that Notre Dame, of all places, was going to be as active in the transfer portal, in NIL, etc. They're really good at this. They're knocking this out. Now, they are getting players from Duke and Wake Forest and whatever else, right? But it is interesting to pay attention to what they're doing. So, with that win by Marcus Freeman, some coach is going to win the national championship for the first time this season. There weren't a whole lot of active coaches that could win a national title anyway. There's only 2 in the sport left right now. It was Dabo and Kirby Smart, and both of those have now been knocked out of the playoff. So you will now have either Steve Sarkisian, Ryan Day, Marcus Freeman, or James Franklin. And on top of that, you got James Franklin against Marcus Freeman, which means that for the first time, you were going to have an African-American head coach coaching in the national championship game in college football. It's a pretty big deal. So it doesn't necessarily matter to a lot of people, but I think as far as moving forward with the sport and allowing more minority candidates to become head coach, etc., this is a big deal. Let's see. What else have we got? Oh, no conference champions are in the Final Four. Now, Notre Dame cannot win a conference championship, but Penn State is the runner-up in the Big Ten. Ohio State didn't even play for their conference title. Texas, runner-up in the SEC. Yeah, very interesting. Also, no team that had a bye is in the Final Four. So, cheers to that. We're moving to the semifinals now. No conference champs, no teams with byes. I don't know what that says. I don't think there's a narrative here. People will try and make one out of it, but I think that the better teams were just there. I think that's all it was. Better teams got to play opening weekend. Every team that had home field advantage has now moved ahead. I think that's good. So the way that this bracket is broken down is very, very interesting. I have got multiple tickets on Notre Dame to play for the national title. I have a ticket on Ohio State to win the national title at plus 300, I think I got. Bet in the middle of the Tennessee-Ohio State game, because if that Ohio State team was going to show up like that, it was going to be a disaster for everybody else. I cannot wait for these games. This is going to be so awesome. All right, let's move off of that. Cheers to Notre Dame, by the way. That's a hell of a win. Very good stuff.
Thanks for listening to Winning Cures Everything. Make sure and follow me on Twitter @GaryWCE. If you want to toss in a question, you can email me, Gary@winningcureseverything.com. Make sure and hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you next time.